Now that the GM and coaching search for the Minnesota Vikings is finally out of the way, we move on to the next portion of the offseason. This is where it gets really exciting for us football fans. It's kind of, especially with the new coaching staff, new GM, it kind of feels like a new beginning. But kind of holding back that new beginning is a lot of veteran players whose some of the futures may be in doubt. Some of them we may want to do some work with their contracts and try to free up some cap space. So it's an exciting time of the year, and I think the news is really going to start pouring in fast now that we got everything taken care of. So I don't know. I'm excited to see what this team does. And what are your thoughts on free agency and our cap situation? And
I mean, it's exciting. I mean, we went through the whole coaching thing. That whole situation was exciting. So yeah, it's time to look forward free agency, and we have some work to do and figuring out that cap space and some things to move around, some restructuring to do, and especially if you want to bring in some new free agents. And it's a the next huge responsibility for Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, but mostly Kwesi. I mean, he's coming in and everything. He's getting everything thrown at him, the coach stuff. And then now this is going to be crazy because, yes, we're talking quarterbacks. We're talking, one of the best defenders in the league. So he's a numbers guy. So we'll see what his analytics stuff can do for us here. But
yeah, definitely. So yeah, let's dive into some of the cap hits of the players. How about that?
Yeah, let's dive in. But before we do that, thanks everybody for watching this GG Sport podcast of the Minnesota Vikings. Where we endure heartbreak, but always bleed purple. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, get notifications whenever we have videos, all that good stuff. Let's move over here.
All right, sounds good. So this is by this little chart by Over the Cap. We actually just started taking a look at this before we hopped on here. It's kind of a cool little breakdown of the players, obviously, base salaries, bonuses, all the kind of stuff that goes into their contract. And the most important couple columns looking at here, guaranteed salary and cap number. Obviously, those are the most important things to look at here. Total, overall, we are 16 million about over the cap. It's a lot of money. I mean, obviously, we're not in the Saints Packers range quite yet, but
right.
That's why, I mean, and just when we looked at this list, we kind of we picked probably the top quarter of it on the page as of right now with Kirk, Daniil, Thielen, Kendricks, Smith, Delvin, Michael Pierce, and then of course, and what contracts we felt might need to be restructured or dealt with. Those were the guys that we really thought were like the ones to keep an eye on. That's kind of what we're hearing. Anyway, these are the names you're hearing when it comes down to that. So
yeah,
a lot of high name players to
like Casey said, bear with us here. We're not professionals at looking at this stuff. I think next year we'll have a better understanding of this. But I think right away I wanted to kind of go down a list of players who are free agents this year. They have some weird contract situations here, like with Anthony Barr, but he is a free agent this year. Patrick Peterson's a free agent. Sheldon Richardson, Rashad Hill, Xavier Woods, Nick Vigil, Mackenzie Alexander, D.D. Westbrook, Everson Griffin, Jordan Berry, Sean Mannion, Wayne Gallman, Chad Beebe, Mason Cole, Chris Herndon. Spielman kind of fucked us on that one, but Greg Joseph, Tyler Conklin, and Eddie Yarbrough.
And listening to that list, there's maybe 4 names that I say we should keep that guy. Other than that, I'm fine with letting them all go.
It's an interesting thing. Yeah. So let me sit on here for just a second. Anthony Barr, that's an interesting situation. I think he's a guy that I'm wondering. He seems like was at least the most obvious that would maybe leave. Of course, Kevin O'Connell has said some things about him, so maybe he will stick around. And it would be interesting to see him if we do change to a 3-4. At the same time, I do think if we do let him go, he might go to a team that actually will use his skill set better than Mike Zimmer did. So I think that's an interesting one. I don't know how I feel about that 100% yet. We'll probably go into it a little bit more in a bit here. But Patrick Peterson, I mean, our cornerbacks are not looking great right now. So if we could keep Patrick Peterson, I mean, maybe that'd be good. Sheldon Richardson didn't really play as good as we were hoping last year. But then we have starters like Xavier Woods. We'd have to figure out what we should do with that safety position. We do have Bynum, which he played fantastic. I do like him too. So so we might not keep him around. Nick Vigil, he was basically like a starter, I guess. Mackenzie Alexander was a starter for the most part, nickel.
Alexander was very disappointing this year,
Yeah,
though.
he
I
was,
don't
and
think
we'll actually,
I don't think he'll be back,
yeah,
honestly.
our next couple player review videos, we're going into our linebackers and our cornerbacks, so you'll hear our feelings on those guys. D.D. Westbrook, we probably don't need him. Everson Griffin, I'd like to see him come back. He has some things to go through, but the other ones, Sean Mannion, I don't care. Wayne Gallman, Chad Beebe's a favorite. Mason Cole, that could be an interesting one. We'll see what we do with that. It's probably a good idea to have him as just for some depth there at the very least. Chris Herndon, he isn't going to stick around, but the main one's Tyler Conklin. We'll have to figure out what we should do with him. So that should be interesting. I could see him going somewhere else and getting
I
more
think
than
I mean,
us.
especially with McVay or O'Connell said he's taking a lot from the Rams and McVay on offense, and they ran a lot of 11 personnel, one tight end on the field, and especially with Herb Smith Jr.
Right,
I think Conklin might. I don't think he's going to get a huge contract, of course, but he's solid. He might demand some money, and I think he's one that they probably will let walk.
I agree. And then we have the obvious other ones is Jordan Berry and Greg Joseph.
I like both those guys to come
Me too.
back.
I think we'll end up keeping those around. So obviously that would mean more money, and we would need even more cap space. And just by what we've said, you're talking about cap space up to 20 to 30 million at that point extra.
Yeah.
Over the cap space. So
right.
Yeah, let's go through this list or whatever. And
let's start off. Numero uno is numero 8. And the most polarizing figure in Minnesota sports as of right now. Obviously, the story is known. He's got the $35 million base. He's got the $10 million signing bonus. The cap number is $45 million. Of course, with his contract, the whole thing is fully guaranteed. You cannot cut him. If you cut him, you eat the $45 million dead. You're not going to do that. He's good enough. You're not going to cut him outright. Everybody has an opinion on what to do with Kirk Cousins. We've kind of said things. I don't know. I'm back and forth. I'm neutral. I've always been neutral. Kirk, as I've said, I like him. I think he's a good quarterback. Do I think he's going to push us over the hump? I don't know. But I could see the trade situation where trade him for picks, get another team to eat most of the salary, if not all of it, and just take on that $10 million dead. Work out an extension with them. You could do the restructure, add void years to the end of it, like they did with Anthony Barr, which we'll talk about in a little bit here, and kind of smooth that salary cap over and push some of it down the road a little bit. Like I said, work out the extension, but obviously, I think we were both talking about this beforehand as well. Reports are coming out there that he is not willing to take like a hometown discount when it comes to an extension. He might be looking around $40 million per year. I don't know if you want to pay him that. Who knows? The news got out there. Someone's leaking it. Whatever side it is, there's a reason why it got leaked. Maybe he's trying to push for not to get traded. Doesn't want any team to have to worry about taking that on. So we keep him, and then he'll work out a team-friendly extension. I don't know. Those are my thoughts on the situation. I don't know what to do. I do not know what to do with them. If you can find a trade partner to get a good compensation, do it.
Right.
But if you can't, I think an extension, if you can convince him to take some sort of a team-friendly one, I think the extension is probably the way to go just because he is good enough. Kevin O'Connell likes him.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I would say I'm a little less neutral to you. I'm a little bit more on the trade Kirk Cousins side, but the main reason is because I do think he's a good quarterback. And do I think he's a quarterback that can bring us to the Super Bowl? I think he could be if everything is in place correctly. There's this thing about him where I think the jury is still out on him, in my opinion, on if he can win the big games. I know we've already went through this with our player review video on him. When we needed him he played fantastic earlier in the season. When we needed him to step up and play more aggressive, even it's when he started to struggle. And I think that's worth noting because it'll be interesting if we do keep him and we go into next year with a whole new coaching staff and stuff like that, and see if we still if Kirk Cousins is still not playing very aggressive, because we all blame it on Mike Zimmer, but could some of that be Kirk Cousins? I don't know. So that's where I'm coming in, and because of that, all that stuff, for my opinion, that's why I don't think he's he's not a $45 million quarterback. And there's a lot, we're getting reports, speaking of that today or yesterday, I think it was yesterday, that Carolina Panthers reached out to us or whatever. Who knows how real that is.
Yeah.
But still, that's like a start or whatever. But I don't know. I think it's a difficult thing for me because the the fact that he won't do a contract restructure, because I don't think he's worth 45 million yet. And if we were to do a restructure, they're talking about like what, maybe like 40 million, not even a restructure, but an extension. I mean, like 40 million a year. So
That's
that
what
barely
he
comes down. You're
yeah.
talking 45 million on the caps, a cap hit. 45 million. We're what I just mentioned our free agents. I mean, if we pick them up, that's including what we're already behind. That's already I said between like 20 and 30 million probably.
But I mean,
And
but with that, there's always ways you can do like you can do signing bonuses, give them the money up front and not count it against the salary cap. I know you can do a certain percentage of a player's salary with that. With an extension, of course, you can push that money down the road to where you could either restructure him again or extend him again, or just cut him at that point and try to make
right.
it like a lighter end hit. I don't know how they do that. But I
But
mean, but the funny thing is, is for the last 2 months, 3 months, his entire time here, everybody's been talking about what do you do with him. Kwesi and O'Connell have a plan. Like going into it, they've talked about it during their interviews with the front office. I'm sure like they know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
We're sitting here, the fans are sitting here going back and forth,
Oh,
the left and right, arguing about all this stuff. At the end of the day, they're sitting there like, oh, we already know what we're doing. You guys can do this all you want, but we know the direction we're going in. And that's kind of the funny part to me is everyone's sitting here discussing it. There's a plan in place. There has to be a plan in place at this point.
Yeah, and well, probably. I think I'm expecting him to be a Viking next year. I think that's it. It just seems that way. Who knows? GMs and head coaches will say all kinds of things, but I think he'll be here next year. I just think the only thing that could change all plans is if someone was to offer us something that just seems too hard to refuse.
Yep.
Because I don't want to just give him up. I'm not someone who wants to cut him. I'm not someone who wants to just give him for a 3rd round pick. Or I think someone said something about trading him with being able to trade him with the money, getting like a 7th round pick for him. I don't want anything like that. I think he's a good quarterback, and I'd rather have him and be competitive next year. I just don't think he's worth that money. And if some other team thinks he is and they can compensate us for that, I just think you should. I personally think you should take that deal. But as far as Kwesi and them goes, I don't think they do unless something comes out that they didn't even expect someone to drop that kind of price tag. And I think that's when they're like, we got to think about this because, I mean, I don't know. Is Kirk Cousins really that guy? If someone's going to give you at least one good first and whatever, maybe even more compensation, is that worth it? I don't know. But
I mean,
he's going to be the biggest one because we have to do something. With his contract this year for sure. There's no way we can pay him 45 million coming into the season, I don't think.
And I'm gonna, going back to something you said a little earlier. You said Kirk could be the guy if you build the team around him. That's the part that just kind of it's tough to swallow because in order for the team to be good around him, he needs to do something with that contract because that's the biggest portion. The biggest portion of the contract is his money. Something needs to happen with that if we want to build a team around him. And that's kind of where you start to question, does he want to win or does he just want the bag?
Yeah. And he's not that quarterback he's just not that he's not a Mahomes. He's not a Josh Allen. He's not a Tom Brady. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not that quarterback. And you're paying him like he's that quarterback. And you can't have a guy like that eating up that much cap space, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I don't know. But something's gonna have to happen with it. I don't see a situation in which you pay him the 45 million this year. But with free agency coming up, though, I think less than a month now, 3 weeks away or something. I think we're gonna be getting this news rather soon because you're gonna want all the money you can get going into free agency. That's why I said to start this video, I think things are gonna go fast from here. I think we're gonna see a lot of news coming out in a very short amount of time. So
right.
But you mentioned as we said, we got to do something with the contract. Another contract that we need to do something with.
Absolutely.
Defensive end Danielle Hunter. Now, we've seen we talked about him. We talked about his situation a little bit in our defensive line or defensive end review video last week. Obviously, as we said, we're kind of looking ahead on the years on his contract, and with the way that it's structured, if you get through this year, his cap hit next year is was it 4 million or 9 something a little much cheaper than 26.
Right.
We discussed it in the last video. The 26 million was to force the Vikings' hand to do something with him at this point. You're not paying him 26 million. It was a way for him to say, I'll come back, play for you guys this year, but let's come to a conclusion that at the end of this season, you guys will do something. Either give me an extension or trade me, because you're not going to
Right.
pay him the $26 million.
Yeah.
Somebody
Yeah.
will pay him something, but you're not paying him that $26 million. So this is where, to me, I'm on the fence, because obviously the injuries are concerning, of
Mhm.
course. It would have been more concerning if it was the same injury twice in a row, especially with
Right.
the neck
Right.
being a problem. But since it was the neck and a bicep, they're both just kind of freak injuries that can happen
Mhm.
to anybody, and they have happened to a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you can, I'm a fan of bringing him back,
Yeah.
especially since
I
he was 3-4. I would
definitely
like to see what
am.
he could do with that. I'd like to see what you could do with him in that system.
Right.
I'm a fan of bringing him back. I'm a fan of an extension. I don't know what you'd pay him. I don't know what you could discuss with him, but I want to see him come back. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, if someone offers you something, do like an extension and a trade or something like that. If
Mhm.
someone offers you something, again, like with Kirk, that you can't refuse, you do it, and you kind of work with some of the pieces that you have. But I personally would like to see Daniel Hunter come back.
Yeah, I think I see some people have been talking there's actually quite a bit of Viking fans who don't feel that same way for some reason, but I think he's incredible. Obviously, he has to be healthy, but I have seen people saying like trade him for a first round pick. People are saying Giants a lot because Andre Patterson.
I don't know if he's worth a first rounder with the injuries.
Oh, no, 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 no. That's what I was going to say.
I think it's going to be tough to sell somebody on that with the
Yeah,
injuries.
yeah. See, but that's the thing is like, so that's what it is. So is he not worth a first round pick? See, in my opinion, because of his injuries, but a healthy Daniil Hunter is far worth more than a first round pick to me. I don't think you're gonna, there's not Daniil Hunters just walking out
Right,
off the streets or whatever.
right,
Um, in my opinion, I think he's top five, easily top five defensive end in the entire league, top five pass rusher when healthy in the entire league. Obviously, his injuries is a thing of concern. But, with our pass rush last year and how bad we did, I just think if we lost Daniil Hunter, I mean, I don't think you're going to find someone else that's going to be able to step in his shoes that way. But
right. And but yeah, like you said, perfectly healthy. Sure, he's worth a first rounder. But
yeah,
like I said, with in my opinion, with the injury concerns, that'd be a tough sell to a team that you can get a first round pick for him. I think if you want to just get rid of the contract or whatever, let another, because he's gonna demand big money, because he is worth
hmm
big money when healthy. But
right, right.
and that's a huge decision for Kwesi to make, and like those top two are the two guys that you need to do something. You need to do something with, because with them, then you'll be able to sign some free agents. You'll be able to get some guys in to help your team grow. But without moves there, you're not gonna be able to do that. And obviously, that's why those two contracts are contracts set up to where you need to do something with them this year. You got to do something with them soon, because otherwise
Yeah,
it'll be
and
too
the
late.
hard,
And you're going to be stuck in cap hell, and you're not going to be, because we got to get the cap. I believe, is it by free agency that you got to have the cap down to where you're not
to
over?
under it. I'm
Yeah,
not really sure actually on
I
that.
guess I'm not sure either, but it's coming up soon. It's got to be. So
Right.
those are
Yeah,
two
it's got to be.
contracts that really need to. Those are two keep or extend trade candidates. Those the top two guys. Those are the
Right.
big ones. Those are the big ones I'm
And
concerned
no matter
about, and those are the ones I am the most intrigued to see what Kwesi's idea is with those guys.
right, because in those two, if we keep them, they're still gonna be very expensive. I mean, Daniil Hunter,
Right.
he's gonna be still asking for a big contract. So if we were to keep them, we're gonna have to be very, strategic with these other players on our
Right.
roster and their cap as well. But
Yeah. No, I think we'll be able to move a little bit quicker through these next few, because these are I think the next four are prime restructure candidates on this team.
yeah,
Adam Thielen, the guy said it himself. He just wants to win at this point. I think he's got enough money. I
Minnesota
mean, he wasn't
boy.
even supposed to make it to the NFL, and he did, and he's a star. So
Yeah,
I think he'd be one that they could approach about a restructure with that contract, and I think he would accept something.
yeah,
So I think that's pretty much all I got, because that's 16 million cap hit, almost 17. That's high. He's also had some
yes,
injury problems. I
definitely.
think that could be a little bit of leverage on the Viking side as well.
Right,
I think
right,
he
right.
wants to be here. I think he wants to stay with his hometown team.
Yep.
So I think he's one guy that, I mean, obviously you don't want to disrespect him, super low ball him, but I think he's a guy, if you approach him about a restructure, I think he would take it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we restructure him. I can't say how much we'd give him, but I mean, probably around like 8 million a year or something for a
Right.
few years, something like that, which is still kind of high maybe. But yeah, I totally agree. I think he's a restructure for sure, and I
Yeah.
think he'll do it as well. The
I,
next guy, Eric Kendricks, you mentioned it before we got on here. I think he's worth all that 13 and a half
yeah.
million
But
dollars there.
yeah, but he's already restructured his contract a couple times. I think he restructured it the year after he signed it. I think he's another guy you can tell he's a team guy and he just wants to win.
Yeah, and
And
then
that's one thing I really respect about Eric Kendricks. He's, for my money, one of the best middle linebackers in the NFL. I would like to see what he would be in a 3-4 defense. I think that'd be
yeah,
really cool. I think he would excel there.
right.
So he's one guy. I mean, if you keep him at that number, I'm happy with it. I think they will approach him about a restructure, and I personally think he'll do it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And Kirk Cousins wants 40 million a year, all guaranteed, and he's not even winning.
Right. But as I said, we'd be pretty quick. Any other thoughts on Eric Kendricks other than the guy's an absolute stud and we take him for that money, but I think he'll
Yeah.
restructure. Anything else that needs to be said about him?
Nope. We need him on our team.
Yeah,
He's an
I
important
agree.
part of our defense and a captain and that whole player.
Yep, I agree. Harrison Smith obviously got the lucrative extension last offseason. One of the last things that GM Rick Spielman did before he walked out the door. I don't know. I mean, I love Harrison Smith. He's one of the best safeties in Vikings history. Might be, I think people disagree. Arguably one of the better safeties in the history of the NFL.
Easily, baby.
He's aging out, getting up there in age. He doesn't miss games though. He did miss some games this last couple of years. Or is it last year? This past season, or the year before, he missed some games. A little bit of injuries, but
I don't even remember.
But for the most part, he's on the field. When he's on the field, he plays really well. He's the hitman. He still is. I don't know if you, God, I don't know if you keep him at that number. I think he's another guy you approach about a restructure. I don't know. I don't think they would cut him. He might be a trade candidate. I don't really know. I mean,
they're going to try to restructure him, I think. And I do, if he doesn't want to do it, I could maybe see something. I don't see a cut, but maybe someone is willing to pay him. I don't know. I think if I was going to just make a guess, I think he get restructures and he stays a Viking. I think he wants to be here. I think he definitely wants his whole career to be as a Viking. And his production is still pretty good. And he could easily have even a better season next year, I think. But I think that price tag is probably too high for him right now.
Yeah,
but I would hate to see him leave.
For sure. So I think that's another guy that they will approach about a potential restructure. Moving on to Delvin Cook. Now, we talked about it in our review video of Delvin. Both like him, both love him when he's on the field. You worry about the injuries, of course. He hasn't played a full season yet. The production is obviously still there when he does play. I mean, he was top 5 rusher this last year, yards wise, and he missed games still.
Right.
But with the way, you look at the Rams offense, running backs played a part, but we weren't centered. The Rams weren't centered around the running back. It was more of the passing attack, the deep shots, they use Cooper Kupp a lot. Obviously they use Henderson and Akers and Sony Michel, quite a bit in the pass game as well as the run game, which I would like to see Delvin in the pass game more anyway. I don't know about the $12 million number with a running back who's not going to be he's not going to set up your offense like he has in the past. I think they're going to move to a lot more of a passing offense. So the $12 million number there is a little bit questionable to me. And I think he's one that they will approach about a restructure. I don't know if they would cut him, but he's one that I look at and I think potentially something could and probably should happen there.
Yeah, I think they'll come up and ask him about that. And he's also the player that, and I would get it, that he might think he shouldn't take a pay cut. And I would get it because he's literally one of the best running backs in the league. And, I feel like, I know running backs don't get paid a lot because of the injury thing or whatever, but, I think the running backs position probably gets a little disrespected in general. You're paying a guy like Delvin Cook, who's the offense has ran through him for the last 4 years or whatever, ever since he's been a Viking, and we're complaining because he's getting paid $12 million when you're paying a middle linebacker or safety over $13 million. So I can see that from his perspective and a lot of the running backs' perspective, but that's just how it all works.
Especially, that in that position is just the attrition of it, man. You get hurt easily. That's why the average running back careers, the great ones are done by 30.
Right. And then
some play past it, but usually that's when the drop off happens.
Right. And like you said, in a passing league right now, you're seeing just like the Rams using multiple running backs and being able to be very successful without having that feature really good running back.
Though,
so that kind of brings down their value. But
the other side of the coin there is Alvin Kamara, who's got a bigger cap number, I'm pretty sure, than Delvin Cook. His contract was bigger. But the thing is, the Saints use him everywhere. He's a threat in the passing game and the run game, and that's
Well, I
something.
think
If you're going to keep him at this number, you
right.
got to toss. I mean, you got to use him in the pass game more. And
Yeah,
I
and
think
I
that's
think we would.
again,
I
that's
think
something
we
they should have
will.
done for years.
Right. I think that's a Mike Zimmer thing and the way his style of doing it. Yeah, because that's another thing too. Is I'm excited to. I really want him next year. I think he will be on our team next year, but I want to see him more involved in the passing game,
Yeah,
and I think we'll see that for sure with Kevin O'Connell's play calling and stuff like that.
yeah,
So who knows? I mean, he might open up a whole new area of doing this, and honestly, getting less if that brings down his rushing account, that might even help the injuries a little bit. So
yeah,
yeah,
for sure, for
we'll
sure. So
see. I
again,
think
really
which
interesting,
yeah.
really interesting. Now, and going on to the next two players we kind of want to talk about here. These two are guys that, I mean, obviously the Anthony Barr situation, Kevin O'Connell kind of complicated that a little bit, but I personally think the Michael Pierce situation is straight up clear. I think you cut the guy. He hasn't been able, I mean, obviously 2 years ago, you don't blame him for the COVID thing. I get that. But then he had the injuries this last year. And God, it's just Delvin Tomlinson. You can even see him a few below there.
Mhm.
He's a better value for a guy who I felt played better than Michael Pierce. So in my mind, I think Michael Pierce is a prime, the number one prime, just straight up cut candidate this upcoming season. A
Yeah. I
beast of a nose tackle when he plays,
right.
but at
I
the
do
cap number
like
when you're
him.
trying to clear space, I think he's a strong cut candidate out of all of these guys.
Yeah. I do like him, but I think you're right on that. I think he's the guy that we will probably cut for sure to start creating that cap room.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at some of this stuff again. We just started looking at this. I've heard of like post and pre-June cuts. If you guys know exactly what those are, let us know in the comments. We'd be really interested to know that. But I mean, if you look at a cut of Michael Pierce, the dead money you're going to have on his contract is $4 million, and you'll
Mhm.
save $6,500,000 on the cap. If you do post June 1st cut, then dead money is only $2 million, and you save $8,500,000 or $500,000. I think I heard you can do like 2 post June 1st cuts or something like that. Again, I don't know. But that's why I think he's a prime cut candidate, because it's the dead cap's not that bad. $6.5
Yeah.
million. Like you can swallow that this year and still be
Right.
okay.
Right.
So
Yeah,
uh,
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you on him. And then I would say probably the third biggest one, I guess, I don't know, is probably Anthony Barr. Probably just because he's a free agent this year. And what we should do with him. Because I mean,
I think he would excel in the 3-4 defense, because
yeah,
I think he would
me
be one of the
too.
stand-up pass rushers on the edge, and
I
that's
know.
where he should have been ever since we drafted the guy. But
Right,
Zimmer wanted to
right.
try to change him into a more traditional linebacker.
Exactly. So,
Obviously, the cap hit here is we added those void years to his contract just to try to flatten out the cap last year. So we take that, basically, you push some of his salary cap down the road, and we'll be paying for it now, of course, and I think
yeah.
into next year as well. And you could flush some of that, flatten that out with an extension if they did want to
Mhm.
bring him back. So that's the interesting thing with him is what
Yeah.
do you do? Do you sign him to an extension just because of what he could be in this offense, see what
Right,
Donatell
right.
could do with them, or do you just let him walk and eat the dead cap? I don't know. It's a tough one.
I'm
It's a tough one.
hoping. I think I would have said something before the 3-4 thing. I probably would have went in a different direction, but I would say just because he was probably another guy that a lot of people just thought you let him walk this year. But honestly, if you can get like a team friendly deal out of him,
Which you
I would
probably
probably
could.
be okay with giving him another
Yeah.
couple of years here
Right.
and see what you can do.
Yeah.
Especially with him and Eric Kendrick's relationship
Yeah.
and stuff. But
Though I mean, he did have some things to say about Vikings fans after the last game. So
oh yeah,
I don't know. Who knows if he wants to come back? I don't really know.
yeah, we'll
But
see.
yeah,
Shit. But
looking at
Brian
this,
O'Neill, worth every penny.
right? And then obviously we already talked about. I say Tomlinson over Pierce in my mind. Then all the other guys, they're not. Their cap hits
Well,
are really big. Like
the
we wanted to talk about the guys that were like the big
like,
money guys that just
Justin Jefferson, just give him Kirk's contract.
right. But those are kind of the most
CJ Ham, you
important.
can't touch. CJ
Yeah.
Ham, no touching. No, he's fine.
Nah, we're already a half hour into this thing. We don't need to get into that conversation because I know how you feel about him. But the Rams don't use a lot of fullbacks, so I don't know.
That's all right.
Well, they'll find a way. They'll find a way to use it.
He'll start using it. He's got to be. Kevin O'Connell has to be his own coach.
Right.
He was a
That's true.
fullback.
Add something to it. Use more running backs.
Fullback that can catch, you know?
Right, exactly. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, I mean we just kind of wanted to go over the bigger name players and kind of how we feel their cap hits will be affected coming up here. Obviously, as we said, these are moves that are going to happen fast, especially with free agency approaching. You want some money to spend, so I think this is a really exciting time. You move into the free agency, then you move into the draft after that. So I'm excited. I think it's a really. I think this is where the offseason really picks up, and I'm excited to see what we do. I'm nervous to see what we do.
Yeah.
And news is going to come in fast, so it's going to be fun.
I think there's going to be at least one big trade. Who I don't know who will be. I think there'll be at least one big trade, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, this is when things get a little fun, especially when you have a whole new GM and head coach. I mean, we literally have no idea what to expect, you know. So
right,
it's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. It is a very exciting time. So with that being said, like the video if you enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments what you think we should do with all these players. Let us know the cut, extend, trade, void years. Let us know all that, your thoughts down in the comment section. Most importantly, remember to hit the subscribe button right down here. Check out some of our other videos right up there. And we will see you guys in the next episode.
SKOL Vikes.